So we're going to go ahead and get started anyway. It is good to be here. Thank you so very much to the ANTN team for the invitation sent to the Universal Foundation for Better Living to participate tonight, to address you, and to share with you what we are doing on the path of evolutionary progress and what we hope to do. You know, the reason that this Pentecostal girl is in New Thought is because of its practicality and its relevance. So I don't play. Dr. Johnny Coleman told me that it will work if you work it, and I wanted to find out what's working so I can work with it. Amen? Amen. Because the universal spiritual laws are always working. You simply have to coordinate your activity with what the Spirit is already doing. Does that make sense? Yes. And so I'm so grateful and thankful to be here. We were asked to share, so what's new? How are you stepping outside of the previous boundaries? And so tonight, myself and our newly licensed minister, you ought to give God a hand because I now have 4 newly licensed ministers. It was a long time. It was just me doing the work in Kingston, Jamaica. My executive minister made her transition suddenly, like I spoke to her that morning and she was going to be coming in, and then I got a call that she wasn't coming. And so I am just so grateful for the 4 individuals who stepped up to the plate and were trained through the Johnny Coleman Theological Seminary and now are licensed and are working their way on the path of ordination. So joining me tonight is Reverend Jomain McKenzie. Give him some love. And so tonight we're talking to you about healthy, happy, and prosperous life on a sustainable planet. We do so because the first statement of faith in the Universal Foundation for Better Living is that it is God's will that every individual, did you hear me say every individual? Yes. Turn to somebody and say every individual. Every individual on the face of this earth should live a healthy, happy, and prosperous life. Amen. And so in the Universal Foundation for Better Living, because we believe in a relevant spirituality, we have to look at all the ways in which we are setting up barriers so that people do not live a healthy, happy, and prosperous life. Amen. Amen. And so it is our pleasure tonight to introduce some of you and reintroduce you and perhaps acquaint you with the Sustainable Development Goals that come out of the United Nations. Every March, I am at the United Nations with a non-governmental entity in which I am a member, and I sit with ambassadors and hear about the sustainability goals and wonder, what can we do, not just in UFBL, but as New Thought and as people of the world, in order to promote and help these goals to be attained, for they are a critical framework for addressing the world's most pressing issues. I believe that faith-based organizations such as UFBL, the affiliated New Thought Network, Centers for Spiritual Living, Divine Science, and all of the independent Unity, and all of the independent New Thought ministries around the world can play a pivotal role in achieving these goals. And so instead of Sheila McKeithen standing before you and sharing this information, I have asked Reverend Jomain McKenzie to join me. Now, be very nice to him. It is his first New Thought audience address at a conference. But you know, on my team, all my people are ready. You know that, because I've got a great team. And so the reason that I chose Jomain of the 4 is because vocationally he is the head of communications and advocacy for the United Nations Resident Coordinator's Office in Jamaica. You see, I could have gone on an ego trip and tried to do all of this myself, but why should I when I got a team member that's in the mix, right? Offices in Jamaica, the Bahamas, Bermuda, Turks and Caicos, and the Cayman Islands. At the United Nations, Jomain leads regional teams in communications and advocacy for the sustainment of the development goals. He holds significant leadership roles within the United Nations, leading several regional and multi-country committees. He serves as the Latin America and Caribbean representative for the United Nations Global Staff Union and is the chairman of the Latin America and Caribbean Communications Network of the UN Development Coordination System. So I'm letting you know he knows what he's talking about. Jomain is a public health and development practitioner who has mobilized resources and coordinated programs impacting scores of countries in the global South. He's an avid writer, creative, theater enthusiast, community volunteer, serves as a justice of the peace in Jamaica, and he's the chairman of my church's board of directors. Wow. I'm going to bring him up in just a moment, but before I do, I want to just defer for a moment to Reverend Sonny Cantrell Smith. I love your heart. I love your honesty. I love your ability to confess where you fall short. I love your transparency. And I love you. Aww. Did you get that? It seems like every time we're at a New Thought conference in July, it was the International New Thought Alliance conference right here. So this is my third time here this year. And Sonny and I were on the same night in July too. So apparently, A Baptist and a Pentecostal. A Kentuckian and a Floridian. Via Jamaica, too. And then the last thing I want to do is, I've just been in touch all day because as a Floridian, you know, my family is there. My dad, 95, is there. My sister, my aunts and cousins. And so just take a moment before Jomain comes, Reverend Jomain comes. Let's just take a moment and do what Psalm 46:10 reminds us to do. We're simply going to be still. And we're going to know that God is God. We're going to know it for our world. We're going to know it for the families that have already been impacted in West Palm Beach, Florida.
The storm surge, catastrophic winds, and
we're going to know it for our friends in Asheville, in Tennessee, in Augusta, Georgia. We're going to know it for our friends in Israel and Palestine, in Iran, in Africa. We're going to know it right here in this room. Where we are. All of God is. This is so. And we give thanks. And we let it be, and so it is. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Reverend Jomain McKenzie to the stage.
Good evening, ANTN. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Awesome, awesome, awesome. I feel like I'm in a room with new friends. I felt so much love here among all of you and on this property. It's my first time here at Uni Village, and I'm so excited. I'm beaming with pride and with love. Thank you so much, and I extend it right back to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's my 10th month in my ministerial license, and I feel like my senior minister, my spiritual mother, she's putting me to work, guys. In a very good way. I welcome it. I welcome it. I welcome it. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Reverend Sheila, for this opportunity. I love and bless you. Now, our work, New Thought, what we've been doing, not just in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, expanding the footprint of our work, also means expanding the divine in all the areas where people are impacted and in some places where people hurt, yeah? So this is why I'm here as a minister who happens to be a United Nations official, reminding us that we are here to serve, we're here to lift the vibration of the world, and to help each other realize and express the real of us that's just and equitable and sustainable, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. And that's actually what we heard just a while ago. So really is one mind, right? You agree? Yes. So I believe that the United Nations is really an experiment, and it's an experiment that's been grounded in the divine idea of love. That's what I believe. That's why I work there. To help us better harmonize the world, to see universal spiritual oneness, looking beyond ourselves, looking to see the interconnectedness of how we live, and to help us catch up with universal spiritual principles and truths. That's what the UN does. And these truths have existed for millennia. These didn't start just yesterday. Justice, fairness, and equal rights, right? And we saw some of these principles in action when the world came together after the Second World War, when the United Nations was formed. And then we saw it again in 1948 when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was accepted, led by United States, former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Did you know that? Yes. And we saw it again when we worked to end apartheid in South Africa in 1994 and thereafter promoted peace in the world. And in 2015, we saw this again when 193 member states of the United Nations agreed to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. Now, let me see a show of hands. Who's heard about the Sustainable Development Goals? Nice, nice. Okay, that's good. Of those who raise their hands, who knows all 17 Sustainable Development Goals? All right, that's good. Who's willing to learn tonight about the Sustainable Development Goals? Awesome, give yourselves a hand. So we're talking about the SDGs, and the SDGs are really perhaps the most ambitious global framework for human development, right? Yep. It is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development for people and for planet. What does it mean? The Sustainable Development Goals mean, or aims, that by 2030 we will have a world free of poverty, free of hunger, free of inequality, and we will do that while protecting the planet and ensuring peace and prosperity, and we will do that leaving no one behind. Sounds good? Yes. This is the overarching aim, the main objective of the Sustainable Development Goals. Got it? Yes. Now, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. They are interconnected, they are urgent, they are timely, and yes, they are ambitious. And, as I said before, all 193 member states of the world, of the United Nations, agreed to this. So, you know, in a world like this, we have many disagreements, and we may even disagree about how we meet these goals. But what I think is really amazing is that all 193 member states, including the United States, agreed to all 17 of this. And I think that's pretty amazing. Yes. Yes, you can give that a round of applause, please. But yes, I can hear you saying 17 goals, that's a lot, right? And I work for the United Nations, and I sometimes forget them as well. So today, to help us remember and to truly understand this significance, I'm going to introduce us to 5 Ps, the 5 Ps framework. The 5 Ps are 5 thematic focus areas for the Sustainable Development Goals. Are you ready? Yes. The first one is people, right? The second one, the people on my left, can you say what this is? Planet. The people on my right, can you tell me what this one is? Prosperity. And together, what's this one? Peace. And together, what's this one? Partnership. Awesome. Give yourselves a clap again. All right, so we're going to talk about the first P, and it's people. Now, more than anywhere else I've been in the world, in New Thought spaces, I know that we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every single human being, right? And we remind everyone that everyone on the face of the earth deserves dignity, deserves equality, respect, and positive regard. So the first set of goals focuses on ensuring that all people can live free from poverty, hunger, and inequality. And it calls for universal access to education and things like health and opportunities regardless of your gender, regardless of your background. So in this P framework, the first one on people, we're going to see SDG 1, no poverty. SDG 2, zero hunger. SDG 3, good health and well-being. SDG 4, quality education. And SDG 5, gender equality. Got it? Yes. The next one, what is it? Planet. Now, this beautiful planet has been taking care of us, but we don't always take care of it, right? And it is the one livable planet we have for now, right? But there is still time to be good stewards, right? There is still time to reverse, rewind, and reset our behaviors. So these SDGs under the P, the planet framework, addresses the protection of our natural resources. It looks at sustainable consumption and addresses climate change, not just for us, but for future generations. So in this P planet framework, we're going to see SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. SDG 13, climate action. SDG 14, life below water. And SDG 15, life on land. And that's the planet framework. The next one is prosperity. Prosperity. Thus saith the Lord, the prophet Jeremiah said. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a future with hope. But for a long time, and I don't know about your spaces, but sometimes in mine, prosperity sometimes get some flack. It's seen sometimes as a bad word. But like us in this room, 193 countries believe that prosperity is important, that prosperity is a must, that it is not just enough to get by and to survive, but people and societies need enough to thrive as well. So the goals under this prosperity framework look at affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, SDG 9. And SDG 10, reduced inequalities. And SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. Now, the next P is front and center these days. What does this one say? Peace. Peace. Peace, peace, peace. Where there is no peace, sustainable development is slow, it's delayed, and maybe even thought to be non-existent. Now, the peace goals emphasize the need for inclusive, peaceful societies where justice and equality are the principles of the day. It talks about encouraging countries to realize and actualize democracies, how they see fit, and promote peace building around the world, free from conflict. Does this sound like something that we also believe in New Thought? Yes. Well, if this is what you believe, then you believe in SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Now, the last P, what does this one say? Partnerships. Partnerships. Now, none of these goals can be achieved in isolation. The final goal stresses the importance of collaboration among people, among communities, among NGOs, private sector, and governments. And if you accept the charge, among faith and spiritual communities as well. So we need each other to promote the principles, to mobilize resources, to share knowledge, and to keep the momentum of the Sustainable Development Goals alive. And we do this through SDG 17, which is Partnerships for the Goals. We got that?
Yes.
All right, so now I have to be honest with you that in some of these, we're not doing so great, right? Progress has been a little bit uneven. The SDG Progress Report card this year called to attention a few things that we could be doing much better on. Now, to be honest, there's been, since 2020, or rather before 2020, we were doing a little bit better, right? But we have the challenge of the 3 C's, which have contributed to somewhat of a slowdown. There's climate change, there's COVID-19, and there's growing conflict. So because of this, there are some areas that we must improve, and others where we are making a little bit of progress. And we're going to talk about a few of those. So in the people framework, in the area of extreme poverty, which was declining, it's now a little bit on the rise. Preventable and non-communicable diseases are increasing, and there are increased reports of gender-based violence. And we know, if unchecked, many people will not be able to access their basic needs. And the result is unstable communities, countries, irregular migration, etc., etc., etc. Now, I know what you're saying, Jomain. This is a New Thought retreat. Surely. Can somebody read this for me? What's the good news? Now, in the people framework, less working people are in poverty. So when there is work, poverty declines, and that's a fact. Your efforts like God's Can that I heard about today is one example of that you're doing in Kentucky. Your efforts and contributions to organizations like Kansas City Gift that I saw when I watched online on Monday is making a big difference in this SDG. I've worked also in public health, so one of the things that really get me excited, and if you were familiar with news of the 80s, and it's that there is a decline in new HIV infections. Yes. You can give that a round of applause, I think. There's also a decline in AIDS-related deaths, so no one has to contract HIV, and no one has to die if they're faced with the health challenge. And there's been a 30% decline since 2010, and it continues to go down. Let's talk about the planet. Now, the truth is, the scientists have said all that they need to say and all that they can say, that we need to keep global warming to 1.5%, right? And we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 42%. What have we been seeing because of warming? Increasing temperatures, resulting in more intense and frequent natural disasters. Today, this week, is one such example. Because of that, people are displaced. Because of that, the ripple effect is poverty and also disease. Can somebody read this for me? There sure is. More people have access to safe drinking water around the world. In 2015, only 69% of persons had access to safe drinking water. And by 2022, almost 75% of people have access to safe drinking water. And this number is increasing. What's our scorecard saying about peace? I heard the sighs in the room. That's okay. There's been an increase in world conflicts, and we know that. There are now 56 active global conflicts around the world. That's a sobering number. And there's also been an increase of civilian deaths because of conflicts around the world. Over 72% of that increase due to conflict, we're seeing where civilians are dying. And over 100 million people are displaced. Let's hold that for a second. It's sobering. And we'll look at other things, but just as we began this experience in stillness, I want this information to also trigger what is there, God, for me to do? Yes? Yes. Who can read this? I'm begging you, Reverend Jomain. There are louder voices calling for advocacy around the world. We have more groups, more NGOs, more spiritual organizations calling their governments and holding their governments to account for peace and for the reduction of conflict in the world. And this is a very good thing. As it relates to prosperity, and in part due to conflict and COVID, we have seen an increased number of unstable countries or economies. And we're also seeing a higher number of people being displaced because of this. And we're also seeing an increase in informal housing. Okay. We're seeing an increased investment in clean energy. Government and private sector are wanting to do a better job of taking care of the economy because it's also good for business, right? This one I'm also very excited about. And I follow the news sometimes, and you see the U.S. talks about your unemployment rates. Globally, global unemployment rate is at 5%. That's a good thing. What I will say is that there is some room for us to grow in terms of decent work, and I can talk to you about that another time, but this is something to be grateful for. Let's talk about partnerships. Now, in terms of partnerships, and we spoke earlier, this is the coming together. It means that, how can we all get involved? But we're seeing growing across the world, a growing approach to nationalism and individualism and apathy, and people are more skeptic. And there is low trust in organized systems, and people have lower trust in systems like mine, like the United Nations, and lower trust in our governments as well. But we're seeing more countries support each other. We're seeing more private sector, more small business embrace the sustainable development goals, and they're embracing more equitable business practices. They're embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're seeing more spiritual organizations like ours give back to the world. And that's something to be grateful for. So that's just a tip of what's been happening, but there is still work for us to do. And we know as New Thought leaders, we have a unique role in addressing some of these challenges, and I'll be leaving my card at the back. If you would like to hear a little bit more and you'd like to get more involved and you're not sure yet now how, we can talk a little bit more about that. But as community leaders, as congregational leaders, with our influence, with our agency, and our privilege, as Reverend Dr. Soni spoke about earlier, we have a responsibility to use our power and our influence to inspire real change and to do something about what we're seeing, right? Right. Will you? Yes. I invite Reverend Sheila to come back now to share some of what we have been doing, and I hope spark some interest in you to have impact in the corner of the world where you live and where you serve. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good. Give it up, give it up, give it up, Reverend Jomain. Excellent job. I give you an A. You know, on his path to ordination, he has to track some of the work he's doing, the lives he's touching, the information he's sharing. So I don't know if you have a sign-up sheet in the back, but if you sign just to say you were in this session, he's not going to call you, he's not going to send you an email or anything, but he has to show evidence of what he's done. He can't just show up before the ordination committee and say, oh, I did this day, I did that. No, he will have to show the program that has his name in it. He will show maybe even a clip of what happened here. And then if you put your initials, and also online, YouTube, if you can figure out a way to do that. No, because they have to have the evidence. If you don't have the evidence, you do not get ordained. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quickly is to just talk about some of the ways after sitting in the UN meetings, how some ideas that came forth. And many of these ideas I have shared with other New Thought organizations. And so if you missed a memo, then all you have to do is come to me and say, I missed that memo, I want to do this in CSL and ANTN and this and Unity and whatever, okay? So here we go. I'm going to still relate back to the SDGs, okay? So let me find where I am now, because I got a lot of stuff here and I don't want to do all of that. So really, this is a call to action for all of us to come more involved in the SDG initiatives, even as we step up our spiritual practice. Turn to somebody and say, don't leave out your spiritual practice. Turn to somebody behind you and say, do not leave out your spiritual practice. It is your spiritual practice that is going to guide you in the activity that you will become involved in if you so choose, as it relates to the SDGs and building a more sustainable inner world as well as an outer world. Are we together? So here's some initiatives that the Universal Foundation for Better Living has been practicing. Let's start with partnerships. This is a big one for us. We don't believe we do everything by ourselves. So the sustainable goal number 17, partnerships. One, arising out of the International New Thought Conference in 2022, which was held at our member church in Chicago, Illinois, Christ Universal Temple. What arose out of that meeting was the invitation for every New Thought leader of an umbrella organization and the members who are independent New Thought, who lead an independent New Thought movement. So you guys are in ANTN, so that means you're already covered because I was going to say Reverend Whittingham and Bill, they cover that for Reverend Jerry Troyer, right? Reverend Jerry designated those two. The other beautiful thing about it, talking about partnerships, is that ANTN hosts the technology end so the meetings happen. And they do a very good job. So give yourselves a round of applause for that. And we meet every first Wednesday of the month, and we meet to simply pray. What did I say? The spirit, turn to somebody and say, she's working that spiritual practice. To pray. So it is the collective consciousness of the heads of New Thought. A lot of people try to jump in, oh, I want to come. That's not what it is. You got to know what a thing is if you're going to do the thing. You understand what I'm saying? It's not about you coming to do, it's not about that. It's about a collective consciousness in the New Thought movement. Got it? Yeah. The other way we partner with experts in various fields. So, you know, it's not strange for UFBL. I remember we had a big, huge conference called Panorama of Truth in 2019. And you know who we brought in? Justice advocate and actor, Danny Glover. We also work a lot with Susan Taylor, formerly the editorial chief for Essence Magazine, now the creative founder of a worldwide organization that supports youth. Huge work. We work with E for Life and Jamaica Network of Seropositives. These are the experts in the Caribbean when it comes to AIDS and gender advocacy. So again, instead of trying to do it myself, I call them. On Friday, October 11th, is the International Day of the Girl Child. Again, in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. Who did I call in? I got an expert that's gonna frame it from Trinidad and Tobago. I've got 2 youth organizations that support women and girls, one out of Arkansas and one out of Jamaica, E for Life. And then we have 2 young ladies who are going to talk about issues that girls are facing today. One from Jamaica, just to give an out of the U.S. perspective, and one from Arkansas. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what can we do right now to address some of those needs through the organizations who are on the line right now. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. It's powerful. You're also talking about partnering with the United Nations, and that's what we've demonstrated tonight. That's what ANTN has demonstrated tonight with him being here and with this presentation. You have just partnered with the United Nations on the Sustainable Development Goals. So this isn't hard, people, and a lot of the work you're doing may be in these categories already. Think about what Reverend Sunny said. A lot of the things she said, I thought, oh, that's SDG on education. That's the SDG on people. That's the SDG on, you see what I'm saying, on peace. Another SDG we are working with is SDG 16, which is the Justice, Peace, and Strong Initiative. And it is important. We have, first of all, and David, I don't know if you spoke about it or not, but we are participating in the intentional mindful practice for our national election that is spearheaded right here by Reverend David Alexander. If you don't know about that, you need to talk to him about that. And so today is day 72. No, yeah, 72. 74? 74. Oh, a couple of them didn't come on my phone then. Day 74 of the 100 days. Nonpartisan ways to participate. Turn to somebody and say, she's talking nonpartisan now. She's talking nonpartisan. And then I sent out a call because I received one where the Legal Defense Fund has a program called Election Protection along with the Divine Nine. And they sent a call out for attorneys and persons who hold JD degrees. And they're asking you to serve after training at the polls. And we sent that out. I'll be serving in Florida in my home county, Broward County. Amen? Amen? Okay, so again, in nonpartisan ways. Polling, you'd be surprised, folks. And they really needed people in Mississippi, but I wasn't going down there. Turn to somebody and say, God is everywhere. Say, even in Mississippi. But you don't have to go. Yeah, no, I'm going to Broward because then my food and rent is taken care of because I got a place to stay. Amen. All right. Then there's SDG 4, Universal Foundation for Better Living, education, and then partnership again. Unity Worldwide Ministries, right here on this campus under the leadership of Reverend Jim Blake, who, by the way, is a graduate of the Johnny Coleman Theological Seminary. That's a partnership right there. Along with his first vice president of publishing, Reverend Ellen Davenport, have extended an invitation to the Universal Foundation for Better Living writers to support in their publication materials. Reason being, Johnny Coleman trained at Unity, and so the basis of UFBL is the Unity teachings from Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And so it was a natural fit for us. And so we have been doing that probably for about 3 or 4 years now. And so that's been working very well. By the way, if you don't get Unity's Lenten Guide, you should get it. It's really very, very good. Another SDG, number 13, climate action. Here's something everybody can do, and we do it in our ministry. UFBO ministry set up recycling as a ministry within the church. It's easy to partner with a recycling partner in your community to ensure that the prediction by the scientists is, if we do nothing about climate change, if we do nothing about these SDGs, if we do nothing, that by 2030, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. And so, like Reverend Jomain said, the scientists have sat down now, and they have said, we're not talking anymore. We've told you, you know what to do, and it's up to you to do it. Then there's SDG number 4, education. In states like Texas and Florida, libraries are being transformed, listen to me, into detention centers, folks. Are you hearing me? UFBL supports literacy, and we believe that literacy is a deterrent to delinquency. The more you know what you shouldn't be doing. Therefore, UFBL congregants in various UFBL ministries have become authors of books for children and older youth, books that aim at character development and current issues faced by youth. Now, the ones here are all in my ministry. Fabian Thomas Djembe speaks to bullying, not from the outside, but from a big brother to a little brother. That happens. A lot of times when you hear bullying, you only hear it based on people the kid doesn't know or people out there, but sometimes it happens in your own home. And then there's Mirren and the Journey to Terra Genova, which gives children permission to dream. Our creative, and he's one of our newly licensed ministers, Reverend Michael Harris, wrote this book because he was thinking about row your boat gently down the stream. And he wrote this book, and it tells the importance of rowing your boat even when the wind is high, rowing your boat when the tide is high, rowing your boat when nobody will go with you. And it's wonderful. And then there's Johnny Toots His Horn. That's my children's book that was given to me as I was dressing one morning. These words came, and I just wrote them down, didn't know what to do with them. Long story, I'll have to tell you about it. But this is a story about harmony, what a young band student learns about being in harmony with his other bandmates and how much better it is. The other thing he learns, among many other lessons, of course, is that he can self-correct. So someone said, I want to know about intuition in a session I was in today, I think with Reverend Ruth Miller. And so the little boy, through his own intuition, finds himself off course, playing wrong notes, doing his own thing because there's an audience there. And without his teacher saying a word, he just self-corrects. And I want children to have that message, that the answer is in you. It doesn't always take this, but the answer is in our children, just like it's in us. And then there's Russell. Diane Rodney wrote this book. She is out of our ministry as well. And this book deals with children who are on the autism spectrum. And she was inspired because she's in education in Connecticut. And a parent was telling her that her child, who was on the spectrum, had a birthday party and nobody came. But we can address that. We're New Thought. Amen? And so she does that. Johnny Toots His Horn and Russell are both in the Unity bookstore. So run on over and get your copies today or tomorrow or before you leave. Amen? And then I want to talk about, lastly, I've done it all. That's great. Isn't that great? Give me a round of applause, y'all. So collectively in New Thought, we can all do our part to leave a sustainable planet in the hands of the next generation. Reverend Jomain, thank you so much. Thank you for assisting me with this presentation. And again, to the ANTN leadership, Dr. Troyer, Reverend Whittingham, I know another, is it Whittington? Yes. Whittington. You got it. Dr. Bill, for all that you do. and for all that you've done and all that you will continue to do. We are eternally grateful. So from our hearts in the Universal Foundation for Better Living to yours, we salute you, we bless you, we honor you, and so it is.